Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Coordinated. Today it's a kind of special episode because lately, if you see CT and all the big social platforms for crypto, AI is trending all over, like including Vitalik, Sriram, and all the big brains. They're talking a lot about AI and the convergence of crypto and AI and what are the big things is going to be made. It's not only about the pneumatic part of AI because I've seen many people talking about the agents and other meme factors and without any utility things are coming up. But AI has a real utility. Today we have somebody who is building in the crypto cross AI space for the long term. We have Openledger co-contributor of Openledger Ram, who is today with us, who is going to give us paint a picture of how crypto AI really is from the technical standpoint and from the real things beyond the hype and memes. And also we'll talk about how Openledger and like EigenLayer is giving us lots of new things to build upon. So hey Ram, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Satyaki. And it's always a pleasure to talk and about AI and especially crypto AI. So I'm glad to be here and I'm glad to discuss more.
Yeah, thanks, Ram. Thanks for coming and like doing this. Uh, First of all, as I mentioned, that you are or were or are in the AI space before all the hype came, right? So, like, want to know like what like made you brought to crypto and what particularly inspired you to explore this crypto AI space.
So maybe I give you a history. I wouldn't say I've not been in crypto all this while because I've been more into like blockchain R&D and sort of like some background in ML engineering. So I've always been in the crypto AI space, but like two separate wings of our the technology shift that we do, right? So I started in the industry from 2017 as more as a blockchain R&D company. That's where we initially got into the space. And as you were doing this, as we were working with a lot of protocols like header, hashgraph, Polygon, and all that, we've also had our own ML engineering wing. Like I usually do not talk much about this because it's not as extensive as the AI research that people have been doing over the last decade or so. It's not as intense as that. It is as just simple ML engineering with where we're just solving the complex tasks, right? So yes, so we do have some knowledge about the space. We have this background and been watching the space very regularly. Um, Technically, we are capable of doing it. Just that we've not done any kind of large innovations in the space, and I think that's hopefully we'll break that in the coming years because we've been spending a lot of time in terms of working on certain research. So yes, so I do have a crypto background from 2017 and also some sort of an ML background, and majorly crypto, I would say, because of the work that we've done with other protocols, and also we spent good time migrating out of Web 2 projects as in like traditional projects to Web 3. Worked with a lot of traditional brands like Walmart, Cadbury's, Pepsi, and more brands to get them into Web 3. Right. So this is during the 21-22 period. So yeah, so that is my background. Crypto and ML. Now it's much more intense. Bringing both of them together, both of the expertise together, and see how it turns out to become an outcome.
Hmm. I think want to know specifically what kind of led you to the start of Open Ledger. Like what inspired you to like start this project?
Yeah. So as I was telling you, right, since we've been in the industry, we've been watching how it has evolved. We've also been watching how AI has evolved over the last 2-3 years. Saw that there is a need for bringing data on chain, right? There's a lot of use cases that we can build around with data. AI predominantly is about data, right? What kind of data you feed a model, that's the output. The better the data, the better the model. So, and this particular sector that we're working on, which is like specialized models, has been very keen also for us. Because if you take a look at any foundation model, there's a lot of factors that goes into it. Data is one component, but the amount of compute you use, the model itself, the AI engine that you build, the algorithm that is being used is very important. It is as important as the data that you feed into. But for like a specialized model, which is a derivative of a large language model, where you specifically fine tune it for a particular domain. Data is the biggest factor there, right? What kind of data that you provide really changes the output of this particular model, and what do we do along with, like, either data could be an actual feed of data and fine tuning it, or the RAG that you provide, or better prompt engineering is just gonna get you a better way of how the model is gonna behave, right? So that has been something that we've been observing for a very long time. So thought of bringing it together, thought of bringing our crypto expertise together, and thought of building a company where we can bring data to change how a model would perform, bring data to change how people would use AI. And that's how Openledger came about. And it's been a work since over the last 1 year. And we're glad to be one of the contributors to this project.
I think before we kind of deep dive into Open Ledger and all the technicalities, will like as I mentioned in the initial part of the podcast, you were in the space for a decent amount of time. Not that okay, the hype came and okay, suddenly let's dive into it. So like before we like delve into the core parts of Open Ledger, I want to know about your thoughts about crypto cross AI. Like where did this convergence begin? Is it because of some particular project which came or some particular mindset, or this shift from centralized control to decentralization is very natural? Like what is your thought about this thing?
Yeah, so I think that is very natural, right? Always people think that Web3 is a separate sector on its own, but it's not. Because like decentralization is not about the technology majorly, it is about the mind shift, right? Um, Whether we would need decentralization of something is a mind shift. I think that has been happening over the last few years. The current generation is more aware of this. They want the internet to be much more democratic compared to the previous generations. The previous generations were more concerned over the user friendliness, their convenience, than privacy or any other factors which brings in democracy. I think that is a very important aspect, right? That mind shift is a very important aspect. The current AI usage is majorly the current generation, the Gen Z or the millennial generation is where we use AI more, right? And if this generation has a mindset of bringing democracy on the internet where they want decentralization, then we would see more projects building in the crypto AI space, right? And that is why I think that's the natural shift that is happening. We saw that AI is going to become a general purpose technology. AI is going to be used in every sector that is there, starting with tech and then migrating to other sectors. And everyone had their eyeballs on this, thought and saw what is going wrong, what could potentially go wrong. One way that we could solve that, apart from the regulations or any other aspects to put guardrails, is use decentralization, right? Is use code as a law to implement what are the best ways to have safe AI. And that's what we are all building for. I think it's a natural progressing that happens, and also a mind shift and the need of the industry as the industry is growing. We can't do this if, in 5 years later, we can't come up with the concept of saying that we're going to launch a crypto AI, because all the traditional AI would be much far ahead for us to implement anything. And we've seen that happen with social media, right? Or any other technology before. We could not make a big dent on how the current social media sector is. We couldn't build like large social media based dApps, right? And I think that should not happen for AI. The earlier we start, the earlier we could make some changes. And we've seen that happening. If you see the GPU sector, like decentralized GPU sector, a lot of people have adopted to it. Traditional folks who have no idea what crypto have started using decentralized GPU companies because the cost is much, much, much lower. And it's an easy way to bootstrap. If an indie developer who can't spend much but wants to text out AI, wants to run a model and figure out how it works, wants to do some innovation on that, he cannot use a centralized player right now because of just how high the cost is and the demand that is there. A decentralized GPU company would probably will provide a much lower cost, right? And he would probably go for that. And we've seen that happen, and I think this is going to happen for various other sectors of AI as well, right? From GPUs to data to algorithms. So now is the right time to do this, and I'm glad that we are also being part of that and we are contributing to this overall growth.
I think there is a high upsurge of, let's say, the agent part and mainly the meme agent part per se.
Yeah.
Like, wanted to know your like general thoughts. I think for few people, memes are like uh, it is a entry point to, let's say, consumers or let's say average people are talking about it. But for few people, it's like, hey, it's kind of we are shifting away from the core narrative. Why we are here? Like as you mentioned very clearly, ki we need to decentralize the from the centralized authorities. So want to know your thought about the current state of AI, which is more driven by like the mematic world per se.
See, in a way, I think it's fine because we are all humans. We all want entertainment. We would start with that and then evolve on to much more serious stuff because that's what happened with ChatGPT or any kind of initial AI boom, right? Like Stable Diffusion was majorly used to generate just memes and images, fun images. People are like just playing around with that. They were not using AI for any kind of serious work, right? And it took almost a year and a half for people to actually use AI in their productivity. And I think that's it's similar stuff is being followed in Web3 as well. Meme agents are fun. It's good to have fun. And then I think after a point of time, we will get bored of that. And then we will create much more purposeful agents. And that's what we also believe because our product, whatever we're helping build is more for purposeful agents and apps, right? Because we're building specialized language models which can enable purposeful agents or apps to be built which is very specific for a particular domain. Like, for example, trading or uh, Copilot or any other specific needs that is there. So yes, so I think it's a slow progress. It'll happen until then we can have fun with all these agents that is there. As long as we are not speculating too much, right? We always in the three industry, it always tends to happen. There is too much speculations, and then there's a crash which kills the overall narrative and the sentiment. I hope that does not happen. And we gradually move to much more serious agents and serious topics as well.
Nice. I think one last question before we move to completely towards OpenLedge and what they're doing. Just want to know what are some categories or meta categories which kind of you are tracking or kind of you are very optimistic in the AI space.
I I'm very interested in the data space and the model space, of course, because we are building on that and we've been researching on that over a year. I think the third, the most interesting space is explaining AI. Right today, most of the AI, if we take a look at it, is a black box. That's why you see corporates or large organizations or any kind of government is still very hesitant of using AI in their day-to-day work because you don't know how it works. You have no clue on what kind of data it is feeded and how it performs to a particular data or just how the algorithm even works, right? It's a black box. People want to crack that. People want to make sure that it's not something that is opaque to keep it as transparent as possible whether the transparency comes from decentralization or transparency comes from regulations, they want to make sure that it is transparent, right? Only then there will be like widespread adoption. Only then large corporates and companies would start using them. So I think that's a very important sector that I'm quite interested in explaining the AI, right? Explaining the models, explaining how it works, and just giving much more clarity than what it is today. So that's a sector that I would love to explore more and see how it goes.
Hmm. Awesome. I think like your knowledge about the AI is like very like deep and detailed. I think we need to do a separate thing on AI with RAM or something like that. But I think this set up a context of like about what OpenLedger is currently like the mainly in the AI space and all. Uh, Now I like want to know kind of if you want to like just introduce us to OpenLedger, like what OpenLedger is actually.
Yeah. So Openledger is a decentralized trust platform. It's a data blockchain for AI. We want to let data contributors um, join together, collaborate, and build better specialized models, which would end up paying them back, right? So that's what Openledger is building. And as I've always telling you, right? So if AI is going to be used everywhere in every other sector, and hopefully that I don't have to do a podcast in 10 years. My counterpart AI twin would do that, right? So if that's going to happen, if AI is going to be in every other sector that we use, then we need to make sure that we have the right tools, right models, and the right platforms to enable that to be much more seamless and much more precise. So that starts with building models which are very specific to a domain, right? Large language models today, which are majorly used across these sectors as an experiment, is sort of like a baseline, right? So think of large language models to be like OS, and then the smaller or specialized models to be like apps on top of that, where large language models have a context to understand what we're talking about, and then specialized models know exactly what we want to do and execute that, right? Provide the directions to do that, and are very precise and don't hallucinate as much as the large language models. That's what the world will evolve onto, and we've seen that happen with most of the apps that we see today, right from Perplexity or any other AI based services or apps. We've seen that people are shifting towards using a large language model and a very specific models to get their outputs, just because it's much more efficient, much more less energy consuming, and then it gives better answers for us. Right? That's what we all want. So I think that's the future, and that's what we are working towards. So to come back to what is OpenLedger, we have three parts to us. First is called like a data net, where people contribute data. Think of this to be like a data repository. Each data net would be a contract where you could think of a topic and start collecting data for that. It could be a SME or a business which assumes or wants to contribute a certain particular data because they think it's useful. They could go ahead and start a data net and start collecting data on top of us. And then the next phase to that is to fine tune a model with that. You either can provide the data as a RAG, which is like vector embeddings, which can be working with any other models that is there. It's like think of that to be like a temporary database that is attached to a model, right? Or they can go ahead and take this data and fine tune models with that. They can train models with this data that they collect and make these models perform with that particular data as a knowledge, right? So that's the second phase where you can build specialized models with the data that you collect. And the third is basically the agentic layer or the apps layer, where they can use these models to infer and execute jobs. Today, most of the agents that we see in these platforms, which generate like tweet agents, right, use like a generic LLM. They probably use Llama model, which is an open source, or they use ChatGPT's OpenAI model, and it just throws out prompts. I mean, you throw out prompts to it, and it just throws out tweets and stuff like that to it. So that's going to change. People would go for much more purposeful agents, which are does certain work at a certain capability, and which are much more purpose driven, right? And in that case, you would want models which can suffice that, which can provide solutions to that, and that is what we are building. So these are the three layers, right? You have the data layer, and then the model layer, and the third is the agentic layer, and all these three is what OpenLedger is, and we provide the entire infrastructure for this. And we're working on a testnet soon, which will be coming out, and it will start with the data net layer and then progress on to other stuff.
Cool. So just correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood it correctly. So there will be the data layer where all this, let's say, data will be collected, mainly by, let's say, the community. Based on that data, kind of models will be trained. And based on those models, the applications will be built. Is it something like that? Or there are
Yeah.
other layers to it?
Yeah. So on a high level, yes, that's how it works. Like data will be collected. There is much more details into it, how the data will be processed, how it will be made available to be useful for training and all that. But on a high level, yes. So data will be collected in a particular, like a data net, and then models will be trained with that. And these models are then inferred by apps or agents.
Yeah. So one thing I think there are quite a few projects, let's say in AI and DP in area where they are doing the collecting data, creating a marketplace where like community can do it. There are some incentivization and all. So just want to know how OpenLedger is doing this part, like the data net which you mentioned, how
Yeah.
the like that thing is being solved by OpenLedger.
So think of this, right? So we are an infrastructure on which you have the right tools available to collect data. So, for example, there is a data intelligence layer which is being built on top of us by an ex Google DeepMind guy. So he's been in the space of indexing and then crawling the internet. So he's building a crawler which uses our network and the network's bandwidth to consume internet data. Right? He goes ahead and scrapes internet data, and he's creating a pool of internet data which can be accessed by anyone who's building models. Because let's say you are fine tuning a model with a particular data set and you don't have enough data sets to get the actual outcome. You evaluate this model and it doesn't provide you the results that you wanted to. You could use this common pool of internal data and access the data that is missing and fill in the gaps wherever it isn't necessary, right? So that's being built on top of us. We provide the infrastructure for that. Um, People are building like a Solidity data net on top of us, where they've started a contract layer around Solidity and requested, and there's a rule engine they've written on top of us and requested people to go ahead and contribute Solidity data. This could be like code descriptions. This could be actual documentations and actual code itself, which is contributed by many people across the globe, who are majorly active with the Ethereum community. And that's being collected in our platform, which will then be fine-tuned to a model. There are other players who are into the data space. I would see them as more as a data provider to Openledger. So think of Openledger to be an ecosystem where you can come and collect data or contribute data to that, which is then collected on top of us. And then anyone who's building a model can go ahead and access this data and build like models on top of us, right? So as much as data providers that is there in the industry, this is good for us because we can work with them to collect data. Or if there is another data tool provider who basically, let's say, cleans the data or labels the data, we could work with them as well. So that's good for us. So yeah, so there's a lot of people who are building the space around data on various niche sectors, and we would be working all of them to help us collect as much as data as possible so that we can build useful models on top of us.
Just one follow-up question basis on that. About the OpenAsia DataNet part, right? I tinkered little bit with AIML. I think a few years back, there was this site called Kaggle and a few other places where,
Yeah.
let's say, in test data or something you want to train your model to, you go there, you download that like data set, or you train your model there only. So how the OpenLedger data net or the data marketplace, whatever we put in, will be different from all these traditional sources?
Yeah, so there are a lot of similarities, but the idea behind this is right. So if we take a look at Kaggle or Hugging Face or any other platform that is there, it's more open source data. Most of it is junk, right? About 90% is junk because like you don't really have the platform for monetizing, right? Even though you can have it like you can set the license for it and you can charge for it, but it's not a flywheel that has been set there. Like it's more for open source. So majority of the data is shit. Only about 10% is good, like refined web and all that, where you have like very good high quality data sets. um so that is what we want to break, right? We want to use decentralization mechanism, blockchain, as a tooling to let anyone across the globe to contribute data to us, knowing that they will be able to see how the data travels through the platform. They'll be able to see the provenance on chain. They'll be able to view that the data is being trained to a particular model. They'll be able to see the versions of the model on chain. They'll be able to see how the model performs on chain. And they will also be able to see whether the data was used by that model in certain circumstances, right? Based on inference and all that. And they'll be able to track all of this, right from the data contribution to the model training to actually an agent using the model and whether the data was used for that particular inference. They'll be able to track all of that on chain. So it gives them confidence to contribute more data because they know that where the data is being traveled. And what also happens as they see this provenance, right? As we do this, we also make sure attribution happens back to them. We attribute back to the particular data provider. So with attribution, you can reward them. They could figure out like price discovery. They could know how their data is priced, how much they're getting paid for the data, so they could improve the quality of the data. And they would also be able to see how a model performs, right? What kind of data a model needs. So it just gives more confidence for a data contributor to use our platform because they could first see it on the blockchain where the data is traveling. Um, again, see it on the blockchain on how they're getting attributed and how much they're getting paid and rewarded for. So this creates sort of like a flywheel for them to come back again and contribute and build a system around that, build like a business around that. And that's what we hope will happen, right? And this does not happen in the Web2 platforms because there's no way for them to actually build this. With blockchain, you could do that. You could just connect anyone across the globe to build the payment rates, and that's the flywheel that we're looking to build. And if that happens, you have better people contributing data, like how YouTube brought in monetization, right? Or any other social media brought in monetization. When they brought in monetization to the platform, you had better contributions for in terms of content from people, right? Blogging became a thing because you know that if you contribute to this platform, you're going to get paid for that. And then businesses went ahead and started contributing their content because they know they're going to get paid for that. Very similarly, in AI today, there is no platform where you can contribute something and get paid for that. And that's what we want to build. We want to build a platform where anyone can go ahead and confidently contribute, knowing that the data will not be exploited, knowing that they will get paid, and they will be able to form a business model around that, and they come back again and do it as and when it is required. So yeah, so that's how we're different.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the best answer I have heard, because I am also personally confused here why somebody is going to like build so much. Why somebody is going to leave Kaggle and Hugging Face and all these open source data platforms and go to this AI marketplaces and all. One thing, are you any plans of having a token of the protocol someday in future or some other incentivization model to incentivize this entire thing?
Yeah, so we will have block rewards to bootstrap, for people to contribute data. So token is definitely a good way to incentivize and like initially help in terms of bootstrapping and collecting data, right? So yes, there would be a token plan, but again, it's we have to work on it, and whenever that happens, that will be designed in a way that is good for the community and the community gets benefited out of that.
Do you think the current market where everybody is launching their own token is a good time to launch something like that? I know it's like a very detailed procedure, but do you think it's a bull market gives you the push for your token if you have one?
So if you take a look at the industry, now every company out there is an AI company, right? In like the traditional space, is just because there's too much FOMO in AI. Because yeah, so everyone wants to capitalize on that and see how they could, build a business around that. And I think that's a human mindset, right? When if something is happening as a wildfire, you want to get into that and see how it is. So bull market tends to push people to launch their own tokens so that it performs well. So if it performs well, the protocol performs well, and then you're able to last long. You're able to create that impact that you wanted to create. So I think it's very natural for people to launch their tokens, and as long as there is good intentions, I don't think it's going to become a problem.
All right. Nice. I think we can have much detailed conversations like the open ledger, but I can like we can have some other session on that. But I want to take the flow more towards EigenLayer now, because I have seen there are like lots of like synergies between Openledger and EigenLayer. Even the EigenLayer community is also talking about okay, how Openledger is going to benefit them. So want to know about that, basically how you are using the EigenLayer stack.
One of the important aspects in our platform, as you know, to build specialized model, you need specialized data, and that data should not be useless data, right? It should not be like garbage, to put it in simple words. And for that, you need to have a very good verification mechanism. You need to have co- tools that is necessary to validate the data that is being contributed. And I think EigenLayer lets you bootstrap your own validator set. We didn't want to build our own validator set. It's just easier to work with a platform like EigenLayer to build that validator set. Where so we use EigenLayer AVSs to validate the data that is being contributed. As people contribute data to us, it's validated by EigenLayer operators. Think of it to be like an SQL rule engine, and as people contribute data, it is run through this rule engine, and each contract, each data net could have its own rule engine, right? For example, a Solidity data net will have a rule engine about how the code has to be and what kind of code it should be, and and how the discussion should be. A data net which is about IP would have an entirely different rule engine, right? Right from the image or video, whatever has to be contributed, what quality of it and all that. So every data net is unique, and the rule that is there is unique, and so they would be writing their own rule engines, which will then be validated by EigenLayer AVSs, and then we would start storing them in our repository, and having the hash of the data on chain after that. So yes, so it's a very crucial part to what is as sort of like a starting point to OpenLedger. So we use EigenLayer there. Apart from that, OpenLedger has its own L2 where all of the data hashes and the user details are stored, and we use EigenDA for that. So it's a roll up, and we use EigenDA for that. So these are two ways that we work very closely with EigenLayer, and I think we also have a very common thesis, right? So we believe in open source. EigenLayer team believes in that. We all believe in the overall positive sum growth, and I think we have a natural synergies there. And I've known the team also for quite while, over at least a year. So it is a natural shift for us to work with them.
You mentioned that there needs to be some amount of verification of this data and all. There, like I think pretty much few AVSs which are dedicated mainly towards the verification of various things. Let's say mainly proof verification. Like, are you working closely with any such AVSs who are kind of in the verifiable verifying space?
Yeah, so like we've there are certain use cases or scenarios where we might need like proof of location for certain data nets for the data that's being contributed. So we would work with someone like Witness Chain for that. We've known them for quite a while. So yes, so there would be scenarios. As a scenario happens, we would definitely work with them.
Awesome, awesome. I think we got a a overview about the product of OpenLedger, like what OpenLedger is, where the like crypto part is coming in this AI layer, and how then the EigenLayer is kind of charging the OpenLayer infra. Now we'll like to know that how devs, like as you mentioned in the very beginning, you are a protocol, you're not a project per se. So there will be devs who will be building on OpenLedger. So want to know what's the current like the roadmap, like where OpenLedger is currently, and where can devs come and start building stuff on OpenLedger.
Yeah, so as I told you, we're going testnet soon. The first part is to collect data. So as much as data that we collect, it's useful for people to build models on top of that. So the first layer is for devs to contribute data to us or build a data net which they think is useful and start collecting data sets for that. That's the first part, and the second is to actually is where we would start hosting models, open source models, which can be claimed by anyone, and they can start fine tuning these models with the data that's being contributed. Right? These are the first two immediate steps that will happen in our platform within the next 2 to 3 months time, and the third would be for agents or apps to use these models and you know make purposeful agents or models, right? So that'll be the third layer, which could be done later on as well. So yes, so that's one way that agents can be used by devs, and they could use any framework and have our models to be to the inference provider and build agents on top of us. So yeah, so we would start with the data net and the model layer, probably the next few weeks, and then once it's open, we would encourage all the devs to try this out. We would want them to test it as much as possible because we want to make sure that we get as much as feedback from the community. We all need to learn, right? We don't know everything, so we'll have to get that feedback from the community and build more. So yeah, so that's what we can look for the next few weeks.
I think we have like covered like a very overview brief of what OpenLedger is and whatever like stuff. I think it's a very good intro session for anybody who wants to know what OpenLedger is, and then gradually wants to explore the protocol more. I think before we wrap up, we do it with every project founders. We do a very like short kind of question answer rapid fire kind of thing. Like I'll ask you three questions. These are not necessarily new questions, but which we have discussed. So I'll ask you three questions. You have to answer them under a minute. It need not be very short that you have to answer in 2 3 words. You can take time. Let's say 40 seconds to a minute. You can answer it. Okay. So question number one is what are the use cases that can be built on Openledger?
People can build agents on top of us. Think of it to be like a trading agent. You could build a co-pilot on top of us. You can build an AI app, like let's say like Perplexity, like a Web3 Perplexity if you want to build. You could build an app like a Stable Diffusion on top of us. All that will start once we have models. So people can use our platform again to build unique models. So each model is basically a data plus an algorithm that is combined together. So they could build unique model sets on top of us. So where they just could build models and then someone else could build apps and start using these models. So there are multiple layers to us, right? So there is the model layer and the agentic layer. So you can either build the models or the agents, whichever that is possible. And I've already given you some examples of that.
Cool. I think question two uh, is there a chance of a OL token? And if yes, how that can be used in the Openledger protocol?
I don't know if I'm breaking some rules here, but so there should be an OL token because that's how the protocol is designed. We've been, designing it intentionally that way so that, we use crypto economic benefits and enable the platform to be sustainable for a long time. So yes, there would be an OL token. When and how it will be launched is TBD. And what was the second part of the question?
How it will be used in the OL protocol?
So it'll be used in the OIL protocol majorly for like block rewards, and then it will also be used for like payments within the protocol and rewarding the contributors using those tokens. So yes, so that's how it will be used.
Awesome. I think the last question is what's a thought or generic, what's a thought? What are your predictions for crypto cross AI in 2025?
I think it will become much more serious, much uh, deeper tech will be built. Right now, we are just testing the waters. There is a lot of speculations. A lot of fluff will go away. We would see much more serious projects being built. I think that is what is going to happen in 2025. Let's see how it goes. And hopefully, the market also will be good because crypto projects are very highly dependent on the market volatility. So hopefully that is good, which just gives some leisure for people to build good products.
Cool, awesome. I think we got the gist. I think super thanks for answering all the questions in a swift and a precise manner. Uh, Glad to have you here. I hope we'll have you more in the future episodes to have some real crypto AI jamming sessions and all. And
Absolutely.
whenever Openledger is, as you mentioned, the testnet is also coming and soon mainnets and the phased mainnets or testnets, like let's say data model and the application layer will come. We can again have a discussion about how Openledger is, about the stage where Openledger is and how it's enabling developers to build more cool apps.
Absolutely. I'm really interested to do that. And I'm enjoying the overall session. Hopefully, you enjoyed as well. And the people who watch this will also like this. So it is great talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Ram.